Hello and welcome back to Jack Knives Reviews. I'm of course your host, Jack Knives. If you missed the last part of our countdown, don't worry, there's a link in the description down below. Howard Ratner, a fast-talking New York City jeweler, is in debt to multiple people. As his debts pile up and angry collectors are closing in, he has to risk everything in the hopes of staying afloat and alive. So I have a mixed bit of emotion about this movie. On the one hand, I do know that Adam Sandler has very interesting acting range. He's more known for comedy, but he can do acting drama very well. In fact, I love the movie Reign Over Me. I think it's one of the best movies he's ever done, even though no one ever talks about it. But what bugs me about this movie is the main performance of Adam Sandler. I mean, he's an asshole character. He's just despicable. He's just a douche in like every capacity. It's hard for me to enjoy a character who has almost no redeeming qualities. I normally try to find some good qualities in him, but he's really just, he doesn't give you much to work with. It also puts a sour taste in my mouth about this movie because it's very much held over by the controversy that is this movie. For those that may not know about it, Adam Sandler apparently had gone on record multiple times stating that if he did not win an Oscar for his portrayal of Uncut Gems, he was going to do a series of terrible movies. Or he was going to do a terrible movie as a counter response to say, fine, you want me to be a clown, I'll be a clown. And apparently the movie that he made was Hubie Halloween. But the funny thing about it is, so many people didn't like Uncut Gems and then loved Hubie Halloween. So it's almost like a kind of like, well, yeah, you can't play a clown for 20 plus years and then be shocked that people only see you as a clown. I'm just saying. But there is some charm to this movie, I will say. I do like the aspect of dealing with this kind of shady businessman kind of thing and the world around him. The whole carrying weight of this movie is actually the side cast. It's not even the main character. It's the side cast elevating him, trying to make him seem like a good, redeemable person, but him just proving them wrong every single time. However, I just don't necessarily think it's one of Adam Sandler's best roles, but I do think it is a movie that is worth watching and worth talking about. Zach's girlfriend Beth is dead. Devastated, he starts becoming closer to the only people who were as close as he was, her parents. But suddenly Beth's parents stop talking to him and kick him out of their lives. Zach becomes shocked at the reason why. Beth has come back from the dead in a more crazy and chaotic way. Zach slowly tries to figure out how Beth is back as more people start coming back from the dead. I've already talked about this movie in one of my dark romance movies, so I don't want to go into too much detail as far as my enjoyment of it. But I do think it is a great movie. I mean, it's got a lot of fun charm to it, but it's also got that cool indie vibe that doesn't really overplay itself. I honestly love Aubrey Plaza. She's one of those actresses who anything she's in, I'll give it a shot. Whether or not I like it or not, that's fine. But she just draws me in with her nonchalantness and her ability to just say, screw your norms, both in and out of filmmaking. And I love that for her because, you know, I do love actresses, especially who aren't just either about looks or being this sort of dynamic character that puts you into a box. Aubrey Plaza can play actually some sweet characters. Like this character, for example, it's very much outside of her wheelhouse. Generally, she plays snarky, snooty characters or smart-ass characters, but here, no, she's very much just a very nice girl, and then when she turns zombied, she gets creepier and darker and meaner. And I love it because the balance between them is really interesting. But it is just a cute, fun, charming movie with a good horror twist that I think is good for any time of year. Joy Newsom and her 5-year-old son named Jack live in a squalid shed called Room. They share a bed, toilet, bathtub, television, and rudimentary kitchen. All of this is because Joy was kidnapped by a man named Old Nick 7 years ago, forcibly impregnating her with Jack. Now, she has decided that her and Jack will escape so he can see and experience the real world for the first time in his life. So Brie Larson has made a name for herself through other means. More often than not, most people associate her now with Captain Marvel. But this movie in particular, Room, it is a really, really, really well done performance. I'm honestly utterly shocked that it's the same actress. I've seen a lot of her other works, and she does come off as kind of cold, both in and out of interviews. But here, she has a real sense of motherly charm to her. I don't know if it's because the film is set in majority of the time one specific where all you as an audience have to interact with are her and a small child, but there's something about her performance that makes it just seem, I don't know, heartwarming, but also with that giant overhead cloud of it's a family dynamic, but it's not quite right. Because we know the aspects of the story that this is based on, where it's the woman that was abducted at a young age and forced to give birth to a child and they weren't allowed to leave the room. It's a horror story, but it doesn't feel like a horror story. It feels like a real, true to life drama. It's essentially all the aspects that you would have of being a parent with a smaller notion of what if you are forced to limitations. It's no longer about you, it's about you and your child. And the parts where they're able to escape, just the heartbreaking moments, the true, real gravity of everything just hits you so much harder having gone through the journey. It really does show that through any sort of darkness, there is a little fragment of hope that can come through it. And I think that's what the whole point of the movie is. And I like to think that hopefully if in the future Brie Larson focuses more on her acting like she did in this film and less of her snarky way of acting, I think she could have like legit range that could be up with some of the best actresses on the planet. In Sacramento, California in 2002, Christine Lady Bird McPherson is in her final year of high school. She wants to leave Sacramento and go to college on the East Coast. However, her protective and obsessive mother is very pessimistic on her chances and is determined to keep her in California, specifically as close to home as possible. But Lady Bird is determined to figure out where she's going to go, how she's going to go, and who she is along the way. Saoirse Ronan is a part of that small breed of actors who's newer on the scene, but needs to be respected for her ability, her range, her acting prowess. In a short period of time, she has come from almost seemingly nothing into being, honestly, one of the best young actors I've ever seen. In fact, I think she's better than a lot of the actors who are younger in that same aspect who get nonstop praise like Timothée Chalamet. I think her acting blows his out of the water hundreds of folds. And especially in Lady Bird, she really does show the vulnerability and the changes of being a young girl in this very religious household of Catholicism and trying to find your own identity and refusing to be called by her own name. Really, it doesn't come off as forced, but it doesn't come off as too teenagery, if that makes any sense, where you see it too much where it comes off like whining. But it's not whining. It's the stuff that she's actually upset about is stuff that's very, very important and real to her. And because it's so real to her, it means so much more to us as an audience. We see little aspects of her creative mind through her drawings and through her talking, and it does kind of make her come off as far more charming and unique to the world around her. It does show a lot of fun charm to her that also allows her to be different. And that's the whole point. She wants to be different. She doesn't want to be mundane like everyone else. And unlike, say, a movie looking back like Juno, where they overplayed their hand, Lady Bird has the right amount of balance that very few filmmakers can really pull off, and even fewer actors could execute. Connie Nikas removes his mentally disabled brother from a therapy session, all so they both can rob a bank. After they do successfully rob it, the dye packs within the money explode on both of them. Nick is apprehended and arrested for the crime while Connie escapes. Connie now sets himself on a journey to try to save his brother, which leads him down a spiraling dark path, all because he wanted to show his brother Nick a good time. Robert Pattinson once again steals the show in Good Time. Good Time is one of those movies that I don't think many people give any credit to. This is how I wanted Adam Sandler's portrayal in Uncut Gems to be. Yes, he's a bad guy. Yes, he does terrible things, but he has a good heart, a good cause, a goodness to him. And he just keeps getting a bad hand dealt to him, dealing on the balance of doing bad things for the sake of goodness, but ultimately ending up failing. It's that perpetual cycle of negativity that leads into more negativity, but you're trying to get up that hill. It's the whole Sisyphus complex of pushing a boulder up the hill only to fall back down the hill. And that's really what the movie's about. It's just about a bunch of kids who get bad stuff handed to them, and they keep doing bad things trying to get it better, and it just keeps spiraling. And it shows what happens when you put too much faith in your own abilities of negativity. And it just keeps you on the edge of your seat as far as what's going to happen next. Is there an end point? Is there a breaking point? Like, how far does this go? Plus, it's very rare you ever get to see Robert Pattinson really dive deep into playing scumbag characters. I wouldn't necessarily say the main character is a scumbag, but I wouldn't necessarily say he's a clean person either. All the good girls go to hell. A hyper-religious woman named Maud with a dark past takes a job in an English coastal town to look after a woman named Amanda Cole, a once celebrated former dancer and choreographer, now terminally ill with cancer. Maud is convinced that she was sent by God to save Amanda's atheistic soul, no matter what the cost to her or Maud. This takes the perpetual notion of overfaith. Now, you may be wondering what overfaith is. Overfaith is when you are so devout in your religion that you follow it to a T. The problem is people don't understand. The people that do that aren't good. They don't understand that taking the concepts, forced idealizations that you have, trying to put it into a modern context doesn't work in a functional society. Being so devout into your faith that you harm yourself, you harm others, you do unthinkable things. It's all in your mind, but it's also in the reality around you. It's showing the true spiralization of madness that comes from that faith in faith. It's terrifying. It's creepy. It's weird. And it shows the best parts of what the horror genre can be. It almost takes those kind of movies, movies about exorcisms and how it's always the preacher or the person of the cloth coming by and they're the Superman to help stop the demons. But what happens when the faith is the demon? What happens if your belief structure is the evil that is causing your world to crumble around you? And Saint Maud tackles it perfectly. Maryford Clark plays Katie as this perfectly imperfect, unhinged sociopath. But she's trying to help. But it's like her way of helping is like throwing bourbon on a fire. You're trying to help by throwing the liquid, but you're actually throwing a thing that's flammable. That is the level of like unhinged that she becomes. It's all psychological. It is psychological horror in its best and purest form. And it is a movie that is slept on for so long for so many people. And it really, really deserves far more attention than it gets. Sorry to cut it off again, but this list is just too big for just one video. But come back next time and we'll see the next part of our countdown.